In October 2025, you could grab a solid 32 gig DDR4 kit for like 60 to 90 bucks. Fast forward 3 months, and that same kit costs you $150 to $180. DDR5? Don't even get me started. Some 64 gig kits now cost more than an entire MacBook Air. So what happened? Did someone find gold inside a RAM stick? Is there a secret RAM black market? Well, kind of. This is the story of how 3 companies, artificial intelligence, and some very questionable business decisions created the worst RAM crisis in over a decade. Let me explain. Before we get into the crisis, let's make sure everyone's on the same page. RAM, random access memory, is basically your computer's short-term workspace. Think of it like a desk. Your SSD or hard drive is the filing cabinet where everything is stored permanently. But when you actually need to work on something, open Chrome, run a game, edit a video, your computer pulls that data onto the desk. That's RAM. The bigger the desk, the more stuff you can work on at the same time without things slowing down. The memory chips on your RAM stick are called DRAM, dynamic RAM. They store data as tiny electrical charges inside microscopic capacitors. The dynamic part? Those charges leak, constantly. So the chip has to refresh itself millions of times per second just to not forget everything. It's high maintenance. And here's where it gets interesting. Virtually all of the world's DRAM is made by just 3 companies: Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron. Together, they control about 95% of the global supply. Remember that number. It's important. For years, RAM was one of the most predictable parts of the tech industry. Prices went down, capacity went up. By 2024, DDR4 was dirt cheap. You could get 32 gigs for like 55 bucks. DDR5 had launched a couple years earlier and was finally getting affordable too. PC builders were living the dream, but behind the scenes, storm clouds were forming. Because while regular people were happily buying their memory sticks, someone else had walked into the store, and they wanted all of it. Starting around mid-2025, the AI boom went from exciting new technology to all-consuming monster that devours every piece of silicon in sight. Training large language models, like the ones powering ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, requires absolutely obscene amounts of memory. We're not talking about 32 gigs here. A single AI server node can use hundreds of gigabytes of specialized high-bandwidth memory. And companies like NVIDIA, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft were ordering this stuff by the truckload, literally booking supply years in advance. Here's the key. These AI chips use something called HBM, high bandwidth memory. It's basically DRAM, but stacked vertically into these insane multi-layer chips that can move data at over 2 terabytes per second. The problem? HBM is made from the same DRAM dies as your regular desktop RAM, but each HBM chip uses way more silicon. Bigger dies, more layers, more complex packaging. So when Samsung and SK Hynix shift their factories to pump out more HBM for NVIDIA's latest AI GPUs, that's capacity being directly pulled away from making the DDR5 that goes into your gaming PC. It's a zero-sum game. Every wafer that goes to HBM is a wafer that doesn't become your RAM kit, and the math gets worse. HBM is way more profitable. Samsung makes about 60% profit margin on HBM chips versus 40% on regular DRAM. So of course they're prioritizing AI clients. You do the same thing. The result? A supply squeeze that sent consumer RAM prices through the roof. Okay, but you might think, fine, DDR5 is expensive because of AI. I'll just buy DDR4 instead, right? Wrong. DDR4 is getting hit from both sides. Manufacturers are actively shutting down DDR4 production lines. They're end-of-lifing it. Why keep making the old cheap stuff when you can make DDR5 and HBM at higher margins? So, DDR4 supply is shrinking fast. And at the same time, everyone who can't afford DDR5 is rushing to buy DDR4, driving up demand for a product that's literally disappearing. The numbers are insane. DDR4 prices have essentially doubled or tripled depending on the kit. DDR5 in some parts of Europe has gone up over 4 times. Retailers are now bundling RAM with CPUs and motherboards, just like they did with graphics cards during the GPU shortage. Scalpers are back. Shopping bots are back. Companies like Framework are literally changing their return policies to stop people from buying laptops just to rip the RAM out and resell it. Now, this isn't the first time these 3 companies have been accused of keeping RAM prices artificially high. In 2002, the U.S. Department of Justice launched a massive investigation into DRAM price fixing. What they found? Samsung, SK Hynix, Infineon, Micron, and others had been secretly colluding since 1998 to coordinate their prices and limit supply. Classic cartel behavior. The result? Guilty pleas, $731 million in criminal fines. Executives went to prison. And in 2018, another class action lawsuit alleged the exact same thing, claiming the trio coordinated to cut production in 2016, causing DRAM prices to spike 130%. That 2018 case was eventually dismissed. The court ruled that just because 3 companies in a concentrated market behave similarly doesn't mean they're colluding. It could just be rational business behavior. But here's what's interesting. Analysts have pointed out that all 3 companies use almost identical language in their earnings calls: supply discipline, capacity optimization, prudent investment. It's a legal gray area. They don't need to meet in a dark room anymore. They can signal their intentions publicly through earnings reports and investor calls. And nobody can prove its coordination. Is it collusion? Legally? Probably not. Morally? That's a question worth asking when you're paying triple for your RAM. So when does this end? The honest answer? Not soon. Market analysts expect prices to keep climbing through at least the first half of 2026. New DRAM fabs take 3 or more years to build from scratch. Samsung has new lines coming. Micron is expanding. SK Hynix announced a massive $500 billion investment plan, but none of that helps you today. The earliest we might see real relief is late 2027 or 2028, when those new production lines actually come online. So what can you actually do right now? First, if you're planning a build and you see RAM at a reasonable price, buy it. Prices are changing hourly, not weekly. Second, check if your current PC can handle a RAM upgrade with what's already in there. Maybe 16 gigs is enough for now. Third, consider buying used or refurbished RAM from trusted sellers. It's the same silicon, just cheaper. Fourth, if you're building new, go DDR5. DDR4 is dying, and anything you buy now will be a dead-end platform. And fifth, don't hoard. Seriously, that makes it worse for everyone. You're not going to flip RAM sticks like it's Bitcoin. The RAM crisis is a reminder that the tech in your PC doesn't exist in a vacuum. What happens in an AI lab in California or a factory in South Korea directly affects the price you pay at your local store. 3 companies control 95% of the supply. AI is eating everything. And the line between smart business and market manipulation is thinner than a DRAM capacitor. If you learned something today, hit subscribe for more deep dives into the world of computers. I'm Bricks and C's. Thanks for watching.